The air was thick with anticipation and nerves in NASA's control center. I, Dr. Jonathan Reed, watched the screen in front of me, where the countdown to the launch of the Astra probe was unfolding. Beside me, Maya Torres, a brilliant and fearless engineer, was reviewing the final details of the navigation system. Her focus was palpable, and I knew she felt the weight of responsibility. "Do you think we're ready?" I asked, trying to break the tense silence. "Jonathan, Astra is our best chance to understand what's really happening with that black vortex. We're ready. The technology is solid, and we have a plan. What worries me is the unknown." Maya glanced away from the screen for a moment, meeting my eyes. "What if we don't come back with answers?" "It's a possibility we have to consider. But we can't let fear paralyze us. Science advances through curiosity and courage." I tried to reassure her, though I felt a pang of anxiety creeping in. As the countdown reached 10, Eli Graham, the team's astrophysicist, joined us. He seemed more excited than ever, his eyes gleaming with the adrenaline of the moment. 5, 4, 3. The countdown continued, and I could feel the tension in the air. "We're about to make history, folks," Eli exclaimed, his broad smile lighting up the room. "It's just a vortex, right? What could go wrong?" At that moment, we couldn't imagine the gravity of what was about to happen. The probe launched with a roar, and the cameras showed its majestic ascent. I watched Astra disappear into the vastness of space, a mixture of relief and apprehension settling in my chest. After the launch, we tracked the probe's trajectory in real time. "It's approaching the vortex," Maya announced, her voice tense. The screen displayed the black vortex, a dark spot swallowing the light around it. The silence was deafening. "We're receiving communication signals," Eli said, his fingers dancing over the keyboard. But suddenly, the image from the probe started to flicker. "No, not now," I murmured, my heart racing. "Jonathan, the signals are losing strength," Maya shouted. Panic spread through the room as we tried to re-establish contact. "Astra, can you hear me? Respond," I pleaded, but the screen went blank. In an instant, the probe vanished completely. The room fell into a deathly silence, and the reality of what had just happened began to sink in. "Should we have gone ahead with the mission?" Maya asked, her gaze empty and desperate. Eli's expression was one of disbelief, and I had no words to comfort my team. The last image I saw was of the black vortex, now silent, like an open wound in space. We knew something had changed forever, and the quest for knowledge that drove us now seemed like a deadly trap. The control room lights flickered, reflecting the tension that hung in the air. Decades had passed since the disappearance of the Astra probe, and now I, Dr. Alex Foster, was leading a new team tasked with unraveling the mystery that had remained hidden in the shadows of space for so long. "Let's review the old data," I suggested, looking at the eager faces of my team. "We need to understand what happened." Miriam, a young astrophysicist beside me, frowned. "Do you really think we'll find anything new? The original team didn't leave many clues." "That's precisely why we need to try. Some information might have been overlooked," I replied, trying to convey the confidence I was seeking myself. As we went through the original team's reports, a certain nervousness began to mingle with curiosity. The records were full of intriguing observations about the black vortex. After hours of work, a strange transmission appeared on one of the monitors. "Alex, you need to see this," said Jake, the communications specialist, his face illuminated by the screen. "It looks like it's coming from the vortex." My heart raced. "What are you saying? Is it a communication?" "Yes, but the quality is terrible. I can't tell if it's a signal of life or just noise." The decision was in our hands. We need to investigate the site of Astra's disappearance. "We can't ignore this," I declared, and the team nodded, driven by curiosity and the desire for answers. When we finally reached the site, The sight of the Astra probe floating in a state of decay shocked me. It's intact, but where are the signs of life? I murmured, my gaze fixed on the probe's metallic structure. How is this possible? Miriam stepped closer, her eyes wide. It's as if time hasn't passed for it. We need to go inside, Jake said, his tone determined. We can't let this opportunity slip by. The silence that followed was heavy, each of us aware of the gravity of what we were about to do. The Astra probe, now a floating enigma, could contain secrets that would change everything we knew about the universe. I approached the Astra probe, adrenaline coursing through my veins. What was once a cold, metallic structure now seemed to pulse with an energy I couldn't quite understand. Are we all ready for this? I asked, feeling the tension in the air. The team was gathered around the probe, their faces illuminated by the faint, flickering lights on its surface. We need to be careful, Maya, Eli said, adjusting his glasses. This data could be our ticket to knowledge we never dreamed of reaching, but it could also be a trap. I nodded in agreement. The fear was palpable, but curiosity was even stronger. As Eli and the new team prepared for analysis, I sat in front of the probe's console. My hands trembled slightly as I touched the control panels. Come on, Astra. What do you have to tell us? I murmured, almost as if I were speaking to an old friend. As soon as I pressed the start button, a series of lights began to flash, and an alarm sounded. The team turned, their faces reflecting the same mix of fear and excitement. We've got a signal. Alex, the new team leader, exclaimed with a nervous smile. Let's decipher it. It's not that simple, Alex. The security seems extremely advanced, I countered, observing the cryptographic patterns. We need a plan. After several frustrating attempts, an idea struck me. If I can access the security database, maybe we can find a loophole. With the team's approval, I dove into the work, fingers dancing across the keyboard. After hours of attempts and frustrations, a small signal appeared on the screen. I got it! I shouted, my heart racing. I watched as images began to form, revealing breathtaking alien landscapes and structures that defied logic. The room fell silent, all eyes fixed on the screen. This is incredible, Maya, Eli whispered, excitement in his voice. What else can you find? As I delved into the data, a wave of emotion washed over me. We're looking at a civilization, likely far more advanced than ours. We need to understand their history. However, before I could continue, a loud bang echoed through the probe, and a security alert went off. This isn't good, I murmured, feeling that something was about to change drastically. The panel began to glow intensely, and a holographic transmission started to form in the center of the room, revealing an ethereal figure. The air was heavy with the anticipation and fear of what was about to happen. The hologram projected by the probe stood before us, an ethereal manifestation that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. The images danced in the air, revealing alien landscapes of surreal beauty, with structures that defied the logic of earthly architecture. I felt my heart race, a mix of fascination and apprehension. What are we looking at? I murmured, almost not wanting to break the reverent silence that had settled over the room. It's incredible, isn't it? Maya responded, her gaze fixed on the images. This civilization, they were here and now they're not. Her voice carried a weight I couldn't ignore. Whatever had happened to them, there was a shadow of tragedy hanging over those vibrant images. Jonathan, with a grave expression, interrupted the contemplation. We need to understand what these messages really mean. They're warning us about the vortex. He approached the control panel, his fingers dancing over the buttons as he tried to decipher the complex language of the holograms. We need to prepare for what comes next. What do you mean by that? Eli asked, his voice revealing a note of unease. These messages, they could be a warning. But of what exactly? He seemed increasingly nervous. His hand clenched around a metal straw he couldn't let go of. Jonathan took a deep breath. They speak of a cycle, of something that repeats. The vortex is a portal, but it's also a trap. Those who get too close. No, this can't be true. His expression twisted in doubt. We should back off. We need to end this mission before something worse happens. But the mood in the room was shifting. The holograms continued to spin, and I felt a growing pressure in my mind, as if something were infiltrating my thoughts. Jonathan, don't you see? This is our chance to learn more about the universe, about ourselves. I said, trying to calm the storm of uncertainties. We can't just give up. At that moment, Eli began to tremble, his expression contorting in pain. I can't think straight. The images, they're changing. Before we could react, he collapsed, fainting on the floor. The impact of his body against the floor echoed through the room, and the tension turned into panic. Maya, check on him. Jonathan shouted as he rushed to help Eli. Whatever the probe had triggered, it was more than we had anticipated. A chill ran down my spine, aware that we were just beginning to scratch the surface of a mystery that could consume us. What had that civilization really witnessed? And what had Astra brought back that could destroy us? I woke up with a heavy head and blurry vision. I was lying on one of the benches in the control room, surrounded by worried faces. The smell of metal and electronics was almost oppressive. Eli, are you okay? Maya's voice cut through the fog in my mind. I sat up slowly, trying to organize the confused thoughts still floating in my head. I saw things. Images of a civilization in ruins, everything on fire. Maya's expression turned to genuine concern, and I could see that all eyes were on me, craving answers I didn't yet have. Did you have a near-death experience? Jonathan asked, his tone a mix of skepticism and concern. No, it wasn't that. It was more like I was there, seeing it all happen. They were desperate, trying to escape something. The vortex, it destroyed everything. The room fell silent, and the tension was palpable. We need to know more about what happened, Eli said, breaking the silence. He still seemed shaken, but his determination was clear. With the memories still fresh, the team gathered around the monitors, where the encrypted data from the probe waited to be deciphered. The alien images that Maya had seen before now appeared darker. Look at this, she pointed to the screen. These are the structures I saw. They were magnificent, but now they look like cathedrals of despair. The faces of the team members showed a mix of fascination and dread. If this civilization was destroyed because of the vortex, what guarantees that we won't be next? Jonathan asked, his urgent tone reverberating in the room. We need to share this with the world, warn them, I said, feeling a growing sense of responsibility. But Jonathan's expression darkened. No, Eli. This could cause panic. We don't know what's really happening yet. We need to understand everything before we act. The voices began to rise, each defending their point of view. The debate grew heated, and I realized we were starting to divide. The weight of responsibility seemed unbearable, and the pressure increased with each passing second. If we do nothing and the vortex escalates, we might be condemning millions, I argued, but Jonathan was unwavering. The truth could be more dangerous than you imagine, Eli. The air in the room was thick with tension, and the uncertainty about what to do next felt more oppressive than any alien technology we had encountered. I looked at the faces of my colleagues, realizing that we were all on the brink of a decision that could change not just our lives, but the fate of Earth. The room was stifling, and the tension was palpable. I looked around, observing the familiar faces of Eli and Jonathan, their expressions reflecting the same concern I felt. The probe's hologram cast a flickering light, revealing the last message we had just deciphered. The vortex is a portal, a prison. The words echoed in my mind, and I could barely process the gravity of the situation. We need to decide now, Jonathan exclaimed, his voice firm but full of desperation. If what this message says is true, the only solution is to destroy the probe before the vortex becomes unstable and takes us with it. But what about the data? And the knowledge we've gained? I couldn't contain my frustration. It was an internal struggle between saving Earth and preserving the chance for a brighter future. If we can decipher more information, we might understand how to avoid what happened to them. Maya, don't you see what's at stake? Eli intervened, his voice low, almost a whisper. We're dealing with forces we don't understand. If the vortex is indeed a prison, who else might be in there? The room was engulfed in heavy silence. The vortex, visible through the laboratory window, began to stir, as if responding to our discussion. A wave of energy coursed through the room, sending a chill down my spine. Jonathan, we can't destroy the probe without knowing for sure what we're doing. We need more time. But he was already moving toward the control. Time is running out, Maya. If we don't act now, we could lose everything. Desperate, I stepped in his way. No! You can't do this. Adrenaline surged through my veins as I tried to reach him. The vortex seemed to pulse, and I could feel the pressure mounting, as if something was about to unfold. In the last instant, a blinding light erupted from the probe, and the vortex began to expand, swallowing everything around it. Maya! Jonathan shouted, but the words were drowned out by the deafening sound that filled the room. The probe, with all its information and secrets, was sucked into the vortex, leaving us paralyzed, powerless. I looked at Jonathan, and the pain in his eyes mirrored my own. We had lost not only the chance to save Earth, but also the hope for a future that could have been built on the knowledge we had gained. The vortex was now slowly closing, and a sense of despair overtook us. The pursuit of knowledge had led us to this devastating tragedy, and with it, it became clear that the truth and its costs were far heavier than we could have imagined.